Thank you so much for joining us today for the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. Here on the Pastor's Potluck, it's similar to a normal potluck where you might get something that you want and there may be something that you just want to pass up altogether. And that's okay. There's something here for everybody. Our goal here is to encourage you and maybe in the process entertain you. If you're ready, let's dig in. Oh, there's fuzzies on your microphone.
Yeah, I had to get them off.
Yo, do I have any? Oh, I got some of my dog hair on mine.
I have got a red on mine.
What?
There's red.
This is weird.
You had red.
How are we starting off an episode of the Pastor's Potluck picking out the fuzzies of our microphone?
You got to start somehow.
Yeah, I know. It's one of the interesting ways that we've started. I always try to think of something, and I totally drew a blank. And so I'm glad that you were being OCD about the cleanliness of your microphone.
Actually, my thought was, I talk really close to this. Like, I like to get my face like right up on it. I'm like, I wonder what I'm putting my face on. So I kind of like backed up and looked.
Searching this way more than I probably
They're
need
clean,
to.
guys.
Oh yeah,
clean.
no, it's fine. It's fine. It was just like these little fuzzies, and I peeled them off, and now we're fine.
It's just lint or
We're
something.
doing great.
It was just tickling your nose.
Oh. Now you know what it's like to have a mustache.
Yeah, not again.
I try to keep that at bay.
Just shaved this morning.
That's good. Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. We're here with Pastor Anna and Pastor Jess, and we are continuing our conversation with all of the staff pastors here at Southridge Church. And we all have taken this spiritual gifts assessment and kind of just highlights some of the things that we are that we test high on, but some of the gifts that we have as we function within the body of Christ. It's kind of in a sense of what we bring to the table, and it's been really interesting to see where we have all tested high in and how we function as a team.
Yeah.
Because there's areas that I test really low in, but somebody else tests really high in. And so it's like this great balancing act of like, it's kind of weird. Like God knows what he's doing.
God and all of his plans.
Yeah. And all of his infinite wisdom.
He's at it again.
He did it again.
Oh, goodness.
He's probably laughing right now at us. You created us this way.
That's right. Oh my goodness.
No, but
So
it's been really good, and I kind of want to start off with one of the things that I think is that Pastor Jess has tested extremely high on is the interpersonal gifts. Now, to give you a definition of this, it says this theme of these gifts focuses on the relational aspect of the body. So it's 100% completely relational. These gifts primarily find ultimate expression in the body of Christ by enabling the church to be highly relational. These gifts show themselves in ministry roles, which encourage community, and of all of the one another verses in the New Testament, more than the functional or insight gifts. Each of the gifts within this theme contribute to the overall relational health of the church. So if you can't put two and two together, Pastor Jess is an extreme introvert. I don't know that you've ever met a stranger.
You meant
You mean
extrovert.
extrovert.
But that's
Extrovert.
okay.
Yeah.
But yes, you are
Yes,
correct with the extreme.
I am extremely
Extreme extroverted.
Yes.
Thank you for correcting me.
I was
worries.
like, wait,
Because
am
people
I an
are
introvert?
like, what are they doing? Like, what is Jared on right now? I'm just waiting for my
I thought you were
Sour
trying to be
Patch
funny.
Kids that I ate just to kick in. So.
Yes.
I just thought you were trying to be funny. I was like, he thinks I'm an introvert. Okay.
Yeah, it would have played. I mean, we could have played it as satire. It would have worked.
Yeah, I still
I'm sure
probably
people,
wouldn't
when you
have
said
known
that,
what you were saying.
well, I'm sure though people when you said that were probably like, she is the furthest thing from an introvert I have ever
people
met
who
in my
know
life.
you. Yes, yes, yes.
Yes. But no, but I think it's so, I think it's important, these relational gifts, because without cultivating and building these relationships, like a lot of ministry almost ceases to exist.
Right.
Because I heard it put one time that like ministry is like 98% people, 2% the other stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's obviously with not just individuals that are coming to the church and that are in need of something, but it's also the volunteer aspect of it as well. And I found it really interesting that one of the ones that you tested the highest on is your mercy gift. And that is the ability to empathize with those in need, especially people that are going through something extreme, that are suffering emotionally as well, and to manifest this empathy in such a way as to encourage those that are in need. Goes hand in hand with what you just graduated with your master's in as well.
Yeah, so I've done this twice within the last few months. I took it in April. I'm in a leadership course right now. So I took it in April, and then I took it again. What did we do this in August?
August, yeah.
And mercy was high then too, but now it's like extremely high. And when I took it, when I got the results this time, I started laughing because I was like, man, it's so funny because, obviously I'm not practicing social work right now. I'm doing children's ministry. So even though it's children's ministry, there's still aspects of social work that I'm still doing.
Oh, of course, yes.
But to see that is actually just a spirit, like it's a spiritual gift, and it's not just something that like, I don't know. I think a lot of times, especially in social work and just in the last probably 5-6 years since I've been doing social work officially, I say that officially because I've had my degree now for 6 years. I have seen that empathy, mercy, those types of things are not something that's easily taught. It's definitely a skill that you have been gifted with. And I don't think I realized that before now.
Yeah.
And so I'm very appreciative of it. And I like looking back, I can definitely see how that has played a huge role, in my life over the last probably 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
But now knowing that like, that's a big part of social work too is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's super important, to be able to, I think empathy is always got to be on any staff pastor or lead pastor, on their radar, because there's so much, I'll put it this way. So a typical person goes to maybe 1, maybe 2 funerals a year. Okay. And sometimes the stretches are longer than that. But because we are, we are shepherding so much on a weekly basis for a pastor, it's usually anywhere between 5 to 7 times a year.
Right.
Just because of the relationships that we have. And so the empathy side of things is just always, it's always on our radar.
Yeah.
I mean, there's conversations that we have that people are struggling with, and we're constantly trying to point people in the direction of Jesus, and how we can rely on him and trust him and put our faith in him, even whenever we've got so many questions of why did this happen, or why am I going through this, or I don't understand what I'm going to do without this person now in my life.
Well, and I think too with empathy, and this is just from like I said, from the last few years of just doing what I've been doing, is the thing with empathy is empathy and sympathy are totally 2 different things.
Right.
And so understanding empathy is for me, a lot of times that empathy is like sometimes not saying anything, but it's just being able to say, I'm here. And it reminds me a lot of, for therapists and counselors, there's something called motivational interviewing. And it's more of just listening. It's a type of therapy where you're more so just listening and validating what those people are saying.
Yeah.
And so I have noticed that in my conversations with people, especially when they're in those situations, it's more so like sometimes, you want to immediately give that advice, or you want to immediately tell them like, what are you doing? Like, this is what you should be doing.
I'm a fixer.
But
so like, it's naturally, that's what I want to do is I want to fix
and
things.
That's a lot of times. And a lot of times I think we see what needs to be done. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times when someone's coming to you for help or someone's coming to you for guidance, a lot of times you can already see what the answer is and what needs to happen, but they're not to a point where they can get to that. And so that motivational interviewing type stuff has been very helpful for me in just validating. Like I've had friends that have come to me and they're like, Jess, I don't know what to do in this situation. You know, like my best friend, one of my best friends, her dad died 2 years ago, 2 years ago. And in those moments, she was like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. She's like, I'm struggling. And I'm like, you know what, Charlotte, I bet this is extremely hard for you. Like I cannot even begin to imagine what you're going through. So what can I do? Yeah. And so it wasn't just being like, hey, suck it up, because that's not going to help. No. But it's one of those things, and just sitting and listening. And there were times where literally it's just a sitting and listening type thing. And sometimes people don't need you to say anything. And I think that for me, it's taken a long time for me to realize that that is a gift, that not everybody can just sit and listen, because there is sometimes you take home a lot, like especially as a social worker, you take home a lot. I've worked with kids, and I've worked mostly with kids in my social work positions. And then over the last 3 years, I worked with individuals with substance use disorder. And there's a lot of compassion fatigue, I guess, where you're putting on a lot of people's burdens that you're taking onto yourself. So while mercy is a gift, it is also something I feel like you have to be able to balance out, because if not, you can get burnt out very quickly, because you are empathizing with so many people. And I think that's the importance too in understanding empathy and sympathy, because sympathy, you're a lot of times taking on the burden of someone else. Yeah. Where empathy, you're like, man, I can't imagine what you're feeling, but tell me about it. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I think empathy is feeling for them, where sympathy is feeling with them.
Yes.
Like it's a little bit in that frame. And having high mercy thresholds is powerful. Where is my mercy on my list? Because I feel like it actually has moved up, believe it or not.
It's second from the bottom.
Yes, it's moved up.
So
Excellent.
You scored a 35 out of 100.
Because when it's funny, because we haven't gotten to yours yet, but what you are low in, like mercy, and I hate to say low.
No.
But you know what I mean? Like the one mercy that's low on yours, the one that's the lowest on mine is the highest on yours.
Right. I want to hit that really quick though about the mercy on mine being low is it actually used to be higher. It's gone down through the years because of exactly what you just explained, Jess. Because you do experience fatigue, and you do experience like situations where you're just like, I feel so burnt out over these things. And I know that like through the years, the Lord has allowed me to set up more and more boundaries, healthy boundaries that have protected me from those things, because I don't necessarily feel like mercy was ever a strong suit in my spiritual gifting. In all the years, it was never very strong. But right now, I feel like I'm at a place that I've never been at, where the Lord has given me good counseling and people around me and resources to say, I can still have mercy because that's required of me. But I do not have to spend myself beyond what God has given me. Right. Because I am setting up these boundaries, knowing now that that is something that I must give. I must give mercy. But if it's not something that I'm naturally feeling the Lord giving me extra, then I need to know that that's an area I need to set up boundaries and thresholds to say, hey, I can give this much. Beyond that,
you know your limits.
Yes, like beyond that, which it's funny that it pairs up with my strongest, which we're going to jump into, which is faith. Because when I run out of my boundary, I've found that I have a really incredible God-given ability to say, but I trust God in this. Mm-hmm. I'm only able to be here for you in this amount, or with this much effort or this much ability, but I know that God is still going to be there even if I'm not.
Right.
Like I believe in my depths of being that the Lord knows what is going to come from this, and he is going to be there.
You have confidence. Like this says, you have confidence in God's future direction.
Yeah.
Like it's you're like, you see a picture that I don't, and I'm okay with that. So I give you everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just an example of that, we had a really cool conversation a few weeks ago, but just for an example for the listeners who may not know me, I had a really solid job in education. I was a public school teacher. I had a retirement plan. We had a house that was paid off. Like, we had a really nice life started up. And the opportunity to step into full-time ministry showed its face. And though I was at the beginning of it doubting what was going to happen, as we prayed and pursued the possibility, the Lord was like, I think this is what you should try. And I can literally remember having a conversation with Paul saying, I would rather try this and fail than to not try this and wonder had I never taken a step of faith.
Yeah.
Like, questioning my own faith. But that was, looking back, I'm like, this is the way God designed me. So we said yes. I lived in a FEMA camper for 3 months without a home. And we eventually got a house, and all the things like kind of filled in the blanks. And the whole time, I know people who, if they had been in my situation, they would have quit. They would have cursed God. They would have burnt the world down. I don't know, like all these things. But because it was me and because of the way God designed me, I just knew God was going to take care of it. Yeah. And some people see that as lazy. I've had people say, well, you're just lazy. I'm like, no, I just trust that God's doing it. Yeah. Like, I can only do what I can do, and I'm trusting God with the rest. And it's a very unique gift because it's not one that is very, you can't see it happening. Yeah. Like the gift of faith, you can't really see it. You can see someone showing up for somebody else. Right. You can see someone serving others. Yeah. You can see those things. But when it comes to faith, it's something that you can't see it until it's happened. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I see that in the past.
Yeah. it's completely, it's.
And that's where my faith is. That's why my faith is at a 3. Yeah. But one thing I will say about that is, like, Scott said something when we did all of our spiritual gifts, when we shared as a staff, Scott said something that really hit me, and it stuck out to me because he made a comment and he said, it's not that you don't have faith. Yes. It's not that you don't have those things. It's just that God has gifted you in different ways. So it's not that I don't have faith. Right. It's just that it's not my spiritual gift. And I have to be okay with that. Yep. And so I think when I first took that and I saw that was a 3, I'm like, some children's pastor you are with a faith of 3. Yeah. But then when Scott said that, it was like, no, like, that's actually okay to have a faith of 3. Yeah. Because you have people that you're surrounding yourself with, like Anna, who is at a 90-some in her, faith, or whatever it is, 86 in her faith. And I know those numbers don't, it is what it is. But, like, someone who's high in their faith can come alongside and compliment someone who may not have that as their spiritual gift. It doesn't mean that I don't have faith. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you don't have mercy. It doesn't mean that you don't have those things. It's just that you are gifted in different ways throughout. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool. Like I said, I just took this back in April, and the change from April till now is completely different. I was in a completely different mindset back in April. I was still in the thick of school, and life was crazy and life was hectic, and I just had a lot going on. And so my numbers did not look like they did right now. And so I think it has a lot to do with that, but also just being aware that, like, you have spiritual gifts that you have been gifted. Just because you're low in other areas doesn't mean that you don't possess those types of things. It just means that it's not your strong suit, and that's okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I found it, like I mentioned earlier, I found it just really interesting that, like, your top 5 are nothing but dealing with people, with hospitality and service and mentoring and shepherding. It's like, I don't know that anybody else scored like so high with their top 5, all from like the same, which I thought was like extremely interesting. And the fact that we do have some introverts on our staff, but we've got extroverts as well. And one of the things that I think is super important, especially whenever you are in a family ministry like kids, and with the amount of volunteers that you have on a weekly basis that walk through the door and say, I'm ready to serve, like, it makes perfect sense that you're in the role that you are in because of the amount of intimate reaction that you have with toddlers and babies all the way up to fifth graders. And I mean, if you just take a step back and just look at it, you're like, okay, like, wow, I get it. Like I get why you're in that role.
Yeah.
Well,
like, it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, no joke. Like, whenever you were candidate for this role, we had conversations like, literally, Jess thinks about things that the rest of us don't think about, in the way that when somebody is going through something, or when somebody is going through a celebration, a mourning, or whatever, like, you have been somebody that was in our lives that was like quick to acknowledge those things. Like, there were things that I would get a note from you or a text or a comment, and I'm like, I literally didn't even think about like that as a celebration moment. And I get a text that says, hey, I heard this thing, congrats. Like, whatever, like, just as an example. And I'm not the only person who received things like that from you. And so it was like, this is so your wheelhouse, like, to be a part of people's lives, like, period. Like, I can't picture, I know that you worked in social work, and I know that there are times when you have the office hours and you're just on your own and doing your own whatever. I imagine those moments were probably more difficult than to be working in the field, spending time with families, with kids, with coworkers. Like, that was probably where your light shined, compared to, I am sitting in a room with stacks of papers that I have to get through all by myself for the next 2 days, or what. Like, I imagine those were burnout moments.
Yes. Very much so. Very much so. Yes. And I think too, with that, it's funny.
That's part of your low side of administration, which is on here.
Which is so funny because that cracks me up, because I told you I'm taking this leadership thing right now, right? So in that, we had to do a spiritual gifts assessment, and we had to do a strengths finder assessment.
Yes. Yeah.
So my top strengths finder, my like number one is achievement. So achievement is top in my strengths, but then administration is low in that, which made me laugh. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, that's actually probably very accurate, because I definitely am an overachiever in most things.
Yeah.
And so like yesterday when we had our meeting, Jared was like, we had a meeting yesterday. We were supposed to listen to this podcast, and Jared was like super excited about the podcast. Like, oh, pick me. Like, I
want to talk about what I learned.
Listen, I laughed because when I went back to school to get my bachelor's in social work, that was me. Because one, I was older. I was in my 30s by that point in time when I'm going back to get my bachelor's in social work. Yeah. And so like, I was putting a lot of work and a lot of effort into all of this stuff. Yeah. And then people weren't like doing their homework. And so the teacher would be like, the professor would be like, did we have homework last night? And I'm like, yeah, we did. And she's like, Jessica, thank you so much for always keeping us like on track. And then my friends would be like, would you shut up? I'm like, no, you all should have done the homework. Yeah. So like in that way, I see the achievement being high, but I have to understand that like, just because that's high, it doesn't mean I'm always the best at administrative stuff, because I would rather be with people. Yeah. And I have to really block that stuff out. Like, like today, even before I came in here, I have things that I have to do, but I also know that this week I have other stuff that with people that I have to do. So I had to block out time on my calendar before I came in here to get like administrative stuff done, because if I don't block it out, it's not getting done.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know, just because you tested so high on these interpersonal gifts, like, I know that at any point in time, if I ever found a treasure map and I'm like, look, there's an X, like, Jess, let's go
totally
do this. Oh yeah. Yeah. You would hate me though, like the next day, 'cause you're like, gosh, I like being around people so much, and the idea of like winning it, like finding a treasure or whatever.
That's true.
Like,
I my goal in life is to be on The Amazing Race.
I was just gonna say that.
I would die to be on The Amazing Race. Like, you have no idea. I've been, cause so it just started again, and I'm like, that is my goal. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. Like, oh, it just makes me so excited just thinking about it.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
I do. You want to be my partner, Anna?
I'll watch you on television.
I did an Amazing Race with my sister. Our university put it on. And my sister, her gifts it's very funny because we're very opposite in so many different ways. And she is high in administrative. She's high in like functional. I'm kind of high in some functional too, but she's lower in interpersonal. Maybe not so much now. The Lord is working in her life in different ways, like He does. He changes us, and gives us different abilities through the years. But anyway, when we did that, I did all the talking to the people, and she did all the mapping out and the administrative. And she's just like, we only have this much time. We did this thing. We've got this thing next. And like, she did all of that. And I was like, all right, let me find the way that we can manipulate the situation and get it done. And it was a blast. It was awesome.
I would love that. That'd be the most
I think one of the interesting things for you, like, would to see the results of this in 5 years and see where teaching ends up.
Yeah.
Because you scored a little low on it. And that, like you said, it's okay if you score low on it, but I think that one of the things that for individuals that are in ministry, especially in their first year, you're still like, there's still tons of things that you're figuring out and learning. And it's just trying to find this. So I'm curious of what it would look like, because I can imagine whenever I first started in ministry that if I took this test, that my teaching would be extremely low.
Yeah.
But it's the highest for me, because I've found I enjoy talking about Jesus with anybody that I can come across.
Yeah.
And not that you don't, but I'm curious with just like, as you get into this and like you begin to see what happens whenever you are, talking about Jesus and these kids are learning about it. I'm sure that there's going to be a new high that you experience.
That this spiritual gifts assessment needs to be revamped for people who do not like to talk to adults.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
I'm sure that teaching would look very different if it was more directed for adults to kids.
That's so funny.
I've preached, and I say that with air quotes, twice since I've been here. Once was a few months ago, and then last summer before I started. And when I tell you from the stage in big church, and when I tell you,
just we need to clarify that for all the parents that are out there listening.
Oh yeah,
no,
like, no. I do that every Sunday, second service, 11 a.m.
Yeah.
I thought I was gonna throw up. It was awful. But if you put me back there with the kids, I have no problems doing it. Yeah. None. I loved when I would teach in teens when I was volunteering in teens.
She was so good at it.
It was my favorite thing ever.
I bragged on her all the time.
But putting me out with adults, absolutely not. Yeah. That is when I become very introverted. And I know that people think that's crazy, but it is very true. You can put me in front of a group of kids, in front of a group of teenagers. It does not bother me. You put me in front of a group of adults, and I want to throw up. Yeah. Like, it is instant, like, nope, can't do it. So that's where we're at.
So good.
Yeah, I've preached a couple times, not here, but I would much rather just have something prepared, like, for like a minute or two in between a song, and I'm good.
Yeah.
I like
Sunday, I'm going to be doing the opening on Sunday.
Yeah.
I can do that. That doesn't bother me. But to actually get up and, like, do more than that makes me nauseous.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
So, Anna, some of the gifts that you scored extremely high on, like you mentioned, were faith, and another one was evangelism, and that is the gift or the ability to share the gospel of Christ publicly or privately with unbelievers in such a way that men and women respond to become disciples of Jesus Christ. I think it's so... it's funny, like whenever you see the results of these
teens, like it that when you're reading the example or whatever the definition, all that went through my head is like, that is youth ministry. Like that is 100% the youth ministry that we have here at Southridge that Anna and Paul have been cultivating over the last few years. Like that's I see that 1,000%.
And you know what's funny? Like, we should do this, like, you know, every 2 years or whatever. I don't know how, as a staff. But I think the next time that we take this, I think we should, like, get the definitions out and then write down, like, you know, put, like, Jared's name next to which ones we think he's going to, like, the top 5 that he's going to score on. And I bet you that we can, because if I read the definition of evangelism, I would sit there and go, that's Anna Blake all the way.
Yep.
I think that there's something so powerful within those intimate settings about leading people to Jesus that it seems like those seeds that are planted take root, and they are strong roots, because you're walking with these teens on a one-on-one basis, and it's like, I mean, how do you explain that? You're just, it's like you're discipling. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's discipleship. I don't even know. I mean, that would be mentorship, but I mean, it goes hand in hand with this, like, mentoring or discipling.
Yeah. The quiz has it really briefly stated: sharing the good news of Christ relevantly with people that are far from Christ, so that they will become disciples of Christ.
Yeah.
Like, and I do feel like that is my number one priority.
Yeah.
And honestly, like, even before I was in full-time ministry, I felt a responsibility towards that. And I know that it was just the Lord laying that as a burden in my life. Like, because I grew up in a youth ministry where our youth leader was someone's mom. I grew up in a youth ministry in areas where I never met a full-time youth pastor until I was 16.
Yeah.
And they weren't mine. It was somebody that I knew. And I literally remember thinking, wait, you do this as a job? Like, that's crazy. And up until I ever saw that was a possibility, I was like, well, this is just the responsibility of a believer. Like, that was just my out on it. Yeah. But as I met people who truly did love Jesus and followed him, but this wasn't something that they were necessarily the best at, and that's no slight to people. It was just one of those things where I was like, oh, well, God, if this is something that you've put in me, then I have to do something with it. Like,
it's funny because I was just, and I wish I would have brought this book in, but I didn't. But we've been doing a book with our leadership team, and it's called Kids something discipleship. I don't know. Can't remember what it is, but we got it when we started our new curriculum, and it's really, really, really short, like 2 to 3 pages chapters. And the last chapter that we just did was talking about, like, the importance of laying, and it goes so well with those spiritual gifts just now. And I didn't think of it till you were just saying this, but it talks about the importance and the fundamentals of laying those relationships with kids when they're younger, so that by the time they hit high school, they are ready to learn and not leave, because there are so many kids that leave the church when they hit 18, 19, 20. And so it makes me laugh, because if mine are the interpersonal, building those relationships, and they're getting those relationships, and they're seeing that people care about them, and they're getting that when they're in elementary, and then to go into middle school and high school and not just say, hey, I'm getting these people that care about me, and now they're getting evangelized, they're getting this evangelism, they're getting this piece that's important, and it's key to, their future. It's so important, because then you have these people that are leaving the church for long periods of time. And a lot of times, I can't remember what the statistics were in that book, but it said that it was a big percentage. It was like, I think it said, look around your room, and there was like 1 in 10 of the kids that come on Sunday mornings in kids ministry, 1 in 10 of those will not be here in 15 years. Oh, yeah. And that means they won't come back to church. Yeah. And it was like 1 in 8 will take a break from church when they're in their high school years. But because those relationships are being cultivated when they're young, they see people care. And then they go and they get that. It's not that they're not getting that in kids ministry. It's not that they're not learning about Jesus. Yeah. But it's very different in those relationships, because then when they get to middle school and they get to high school, they're asking those hard questions. Like, why should I believe what I believe? Why does this matter? And so it's in those ways where you're able to use those gifts of evangelism to say, hey, you know what? This is why it matters. Yeah. Like, as a first grader, second grader, we may not understand that. But as a 6th and 7th grader, we're asking those questions. And so I just think it's cool how those gifts kind of like, you know, like I said, like you're high in stuff that I'm low in, but then to hear what that, that's the word, compliments, but it complements those things in that I probably wouldn't have thought about that until I read that chapter. I'll have to let you borrow that book, but it's really good because I'm sitting here reading that and I was like, wow, that's really crazy, because really and truly that's what we're called to do is we're called to just be with people a lot of times and to sit with them in those things that they're going through. But then we get this other part of like, let me tell you about Jesus. Let me tell you about what he's done and how that can make a difference and why it matters to you.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing working with teenagers is that, like, why does this matter to me? And, like, what do I need to do if it does matter? Because not just teens, but starting when you are a teenager, you do start to, whether you want to admit it or not, you care about your future. Like, you care about what's to come. You care about what kind of job you're going to land, if you're going to be married, if you're going to be staying at home, if you're going to be moving out of state, if you're going to be, you start to care about those things. Yeah. And you start to, when someone says, hey, you should study this, and you say why, they have a reason. You should do this. Why? And there's a reason. Like, you study math since you're in kindergarten, but when someone says you should maybe consider being an engineer or a math teacher, why? Well, here's some reasons. Like, if we are bringing up kids in faith, whether they're in our home, in our community, we work with them as volunteers or leaders. When they get to those years, we say, hey, you should stick with Jesus. Why? Yeah. Why does it matter? Like, we have to be responsible. Myself personally, because of what the Lord has given me, I am responsible to give relevant reasons as to why to continue to follow Jesus. Yeah. And I am thankful to the Lord that faith is so high for me also to be able to say, I didn't know either, but look at what the Lord has done. Absolutely. And being able to share that personally and move on and to give opportunities for those that work with us to do the same. Like our very first youth night, we did testimonies. The leaders, the adults shared, hey, here's where God has been faithful in my life. That was personal for me because I needed that when I was a teenager. Yeah. I needed someone to say, here's why I stick with Jesus, because this is what God is able to do.
And I think with teenagers too, like they want people to do that.
Yes.
Because like I will never forget, and I was just having this conversation with Cheryl last week. I think it was Cheryl. But we were just having this conversation last week. Like I remember sitting in Kansas City in my office about 2 months before one of my kids was killed. And Jamar was sitting in my office and he's sitting across the desk from me. He had just found out that he was possibly going to be a dad. And there was all of this stuff going on. And he just had a lot of, he was angry. He was mad at the world. And he's sitting there and I said, Jamar, like, talk to me. What's going on? And he's like, why do you care? Like, why do you care? And I said, why wouldn't I care? And he said, because adults don't care about what kids do. Like, adults don't care. And that really kind of hit me. Yeah. And it was like, no, but adults do care. And I think like what you were just saying, it makes me think about those conversations that I've had with teenagers and I've had with kids where, you know, they want to know that you care. Yeah. But not only do they want to know that you care, but they need to know that you've been there. You know what I mean? Like, I think sometimes like teenagers and kids both, like they sometimes are kind of voiceless in that people don't want, like, out of sight, out of mind. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so to give them a voice, but also to not just give them a voice, but to let them know, like, hey, guess what? I'm human too. Yeah. I've made mistakes. Yeah. And this is where I was, and this is where I am now. Like, I know for a fact when I've been back there and I've taught with teens, I probably told teens back there more than what I've told other people. Yeah. You know, like I've talked about a bunch of stuff back there with teenagers. Right. And I remember sitting back there and telling them about Jamar and the look on their face, because some of those kids had just experienced loss because of a shooting down on the west side. This was a couple years ago. Yep. And the look on their faces was like, wait a minute, she's experienced that? She's gone through that? That's crazy. And so I think we have to be able to be willing to share those hard things and those testimonies, because it lets them know that there's still hope, that there is still faith in knowing that, like, hey, you know what? I've experienced that. I experienced it okay, I may have been a little bit older than you when I experienced it, but I've experienced it, and this is where I was, and this is where God's brought me to. So they need that. They absolutely need that, because that needs to be, it's almost like a validation of like, man, I've been there, I've done that. They've been there, they've gotten through it. Like, look where they're at now.
Well, and for kids too as well, like, I mean, think about how long they've been on this earth, right? And so whenever something comes around and maybe to an adult, it's not that bad of a situation, but to them, it's extremely catastrophic.
Absolutely.
And so it's the only thing that they know. It's the real deep hurt or deep struggle that they have dealt with for all of their life. And so meeting them in where they are at and letting them be heard and walking alongside of them and being relatable if you have gone through something similar is what lasts in kids' minds.
It's impactful.
One of the things that I wish I would have had was somebody that had gone through alcoholism or a drug addiction that could have related, and maybe I wouldn't have done it for so long. Maybe I would have, I don't know, but I wish that I would have had somebody to talk to. The only person that I could talk to was a guy that went to our church, and he was a cop. And so he was like, you just need to quit doing that.
Yeah.
You're going to like go to jail. And I'm like, I don't care about jail right now. I'm not going to get caught, just being cocky and stupid. But, and I love that guy to death, even to this day. But I wish I would have had somebody that was like, dude, I understand like the process that goes through your mind whenever you wake up and you go, I know what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go to work, and every single dollar I make, I'm going to spend it on alcohol or drugs or whatever.
Well, and that's where, like, we actually talked about this yesterday as a staff with a podcast we were listening to, like, understanding your audience, like wherever you are as a spiritual person in a relationship with Jesus, like, understand the people that you're going to come in contact with, understand your family, understand your coworkers. For us as leaders, understanding our volunteers, understanding those we teach. Like, if you can get to understand them, it is nice to have someone who's experienced it. However, if you can do your research and be genuine, you're not coming at them as an attack, but saying, this is what I have experienced as I've researched things that you're facing. And here's, out of my most loving truth, I want you to hear this.
Yeah.
I'm here for you to walk through this, but you need to know this is something that we need to get beyond. This is something we need to get. Like, I didn't date in high school. Almost every kid I work with dates. So I have to study and remember. I have to keep it sharp in my memory. What was it like for my friends who did date? Yeah. As a friend of theirs, what did I experience? Because then I don't have to come at them and say, like, well, I didn't really date anybody, so I don't know what you're going through. I have nothing for you. I can say, I didn't date anybody, but my friend dated all of our friends, and this is what it felt like to be their friend.
Right.
Maybe your friends are experiencing this too. Have you ever seen it from that angle? Like, just bringing your most genuine self forward and sharing based on your own experience, but also what you're willing to search into. And like, this goes again with just like, when you know what you're spiritually gifted in, you can create lifts, if you will, to lift up those other areas by maybe taking that extra step, like doing a little bit extra so that you can meet people in those areas that you're just not naturally strong in.
Well, and I'm like, yes, like that's so accurate, because I am a children's pastor who does not have children.
Yes.
And I will say, I have had people say things to me like, and those things hurt. Like, people have said like, oh, well, you don't understand because you're not a parent. Okay, if someone
who said that?
I've had a lot of people say that.
We're gonna get.
But here's what I will say. I will say this: people who know me know that no, I don't have children. But if someone knew me, they would know that I have probably been more of a parent to probably over 100 and 150 kids over the last 10 years than some of their parents have. When I was in Kansas City, that literally was pretty much my job.
Right.
I was taking kids to doctor's appointments. I was taking them to school. I was getting them ready for school. I was putting them on the bus. I was getting them off the bus. I was doing their homework. I was doing all these different things.
Yep.
And the same thing when I worked at the shelter. I mean, literally, those kids were I was the first thing they saw when they got up in the morning, and a lot of times I was the last one they saw when they went to bed at night.
Yeah.
And then I'd get calls on the weekends like, hey, so-and-so is going crazy and they won't talk to anybody but you. And so it's those experiences within my life. Plus, I mean, I get it. We're not a normal family. Like Landon and Olivia might as well be mine some days. And I don't say that for like a bad thing.
Right.
But like, I really think they would live with us half the time. And like, so I get that. Like, we're not normal, and that's okay.
Do you want my kids?
I mean, bring them on, whatever. But I think that it's one of those things where like we have to be willing to educate ourselves on, like you said, on those things that maybe we don't necessarily have the lived expertise in. But that just because I don't have the lived expertise doesn't mean that I can't help you or I can't be a part of that. Like I did have a parent reach out to me this time last year, and she was like, Jessica, my kid is really struggling with a lot of mental health issues. I don't know what to do. What can I do? And I said, actually, there's a lot. So let me help you out. We just had the same thing happen a couple weeks ago. We had a parent and she was like, Jessica, I don't know. Like my kid's behavior is off the charts. Like he's just a toddler. Like, what do I do? And I'm like, have you reached out to Birth to 3 to see if maybe they'd be able to help?
Right.
So like, there are those things that like, yes, I may not have a child, but I can still help.
You have the heart of a mom.
I do.
Well, and the resources
that are
beyond what most parents have,
because of that knowledge, that social work knowledge, and so but it's also a part of educating myself.
Yes,
like I have to be able to educate myself, and as silly as it sounds, like I can relate to kids and teenagers mainly. That's one of the reasons I stay on TikTok. It's because I do have that relationship in that, but I also will still watch the Disney Channel if I need to, because I need to know what these kids are watching. Wednesdays, Terry comes up, brings the boys. I had never heard of Bluey until a couple weeks ago, and now the Stinking Bluey song's in my head all the time. But I have to be able to learn what's going on so that I can be better at what I'm doing, because I can't go in and be completely blind to the fact that like I don't have a clue what's going on with the kids or their families that I'm working with.
Yeah.
And
so
let's
we
be
have
honest.
to be willing to educate ourselves in that also.
And let's be honest, like you like Disney.
I do.
I mean,
there's no shame in it. I do. I have a pair of Minnie Mouse ears on my desk right now.
Dude, I swear one time I was walking through the hallways and you were like, a whole new world.
I probably was.
Guaranteed.
My newest thing has been the Lion King. We've been trying to figure out what the words are at the beginning. The that part. I don't know what it actually says.
I know what happens after that. It's pink pajamas, penguins on the bottom. Pink pajamas, penguins on the bottom.
I'm going to sing it like that.
Pink pajamas, penguins on the bottom. Now.
Landon used to get so mad when we would try to sing that.
So bad.
You're welcome.
He would say, I would say, Landon, that is not what you say. He'd say, yes, it is. It's ha-zavanya, ba-ba-bee, ba-ba-ba. Like, Landon, that's not what they say.
Right. No.
Yes, it is. He was very accurate.
It's Swahili and it translates to something.
Yes, we looked it up. It means like the lion is the sun or something like that. Yeah, it's like
the lion is in the jungle.
And
the jungle really belongs to the lion.
Dumb, because then when you try to sing it, it's like, because the lion is the sun. No, that's not. That's stupid.
It is interesting.
Well, speaking of spiritual gifts, I think that one of the things that we need to touch on is also some possible non-spiritual gifts.
Oh, this should be fun.
Oh my goodness! Speaking of pink pajamas with penguins on the bottom, this is the pastor's potluck, and my name is Anna Blake. But for right now, I'm going to transform to Nanna because I brought some casserole. This is Nanna's Casserole, the segment of the podcast where I come on and share something worth you. Hey, we don't like using that phrasing.
No. Not in 2022 we don't.
Jeez.
Yeah, maybe if we started a podcast in 1990, but
so moving on. Nanna's Casserole today is going to be around the concept that there are valuable non-spiritual gifts that everybody should try.
Do you think the word valuable really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
all right.
Because I mean, we are all of the same body, so our non-spiritual gifts contribute to that.
God
as well.
doesn't make any mistakes, and that includes you guys. These gifts, I don't know, but Anyway, everybody should try these. The first one
These are like hold on. These are like the stomach gurgles and the earwax of the body.
Yes, this is the post Taco Bell effects of the body. The spiritual gifts. Non-spiritual, I meant. Non-spiritual gifts that everyone should try. Moving on. The first is eyebrow dancing. Because you can't say that you're truly an amazing dancer until your eyebrows can dance with you. So everyone go ahead and try wherever you are. Kind of get those eyebrows moving. See if you've got that gift. Okay, moving on.
Let us know if you scored a 90 or above.
Mine was a 0.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surround yourself with people who are strong in these.
I can move them up and down. That's all they do. Is anybody a really good eyebrow dancer? Let us know.
All right.
Who's good at whistling?
The next non-spiritual gift that everyone should try is walking like a crab, because it doesn't look like it's that hard, but when you try it, it might be trickier than you realize. So if you're driving, don't do it. But if you have a moment today, we dare you, try out that non-spiritual gift
and
see if you can walk like. Oh, please, yes. All right.
And call us if you need help getting up.
The next one was brought to you by 90s talent sensations. This is the gift of singing with your mouth closed. If you were ever a person who lived in the 90s, this was a big deal, ventriloquists. And if you have this talent, no one will ever be able to tell you to shut up, because
they don't know
technically your mouth was never open. So let's see. Go ahead and give that one a try if you haven't done that before.
You want me to try it?
Can you do it? Because you sing.
Like talk?
Can you do like a ventriloquy? Ventriloquy?
What? I can't do that. I want to go like this.
I can play the kazoo. Does that count? Because it's kind of like humming. No, but I still have to. Okay, can you sing with your mouth closed?
Like close my mouth and sing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wouldn't be able
like
to
through your lips?
pronunciate.
Well, so let's see what you got.
Like,
Sing.
Jesus loves me.
Do what was that? A Whole New World. Try it. A Whole New World. You just sang it for us.
yeah, but am I supposed to try to pronounce? Like, try to
You
do
were
it like I have a
supposed to
puppet
sing,
in my
like-
hand?
Yes, but with your lips, like.
A whole new world with new horizons to pursue.
You know what?
The P got you
Yeah,
that.
the P got me.
The P, it didn't stand a chance. However,
Whoa.
I'm
careful
very
there.
impressed. I'm very impressed with that gift. If you haven't tried,
Cat-like reflexes whenever things are falling.
Hey,
More
caught
importantly,
it. That
expensive
didn't make-
things like
that
that
didn't make the
microphone,
cut.
Pastor Jess.
that did not make the cut.
I caught it.
Well, there's only 2 more gifts we'd like for you to try. These non-spiritual taco After Effects gifts. And one that I'd like to add next is talking backwards. This can either be really cool or super annoying depending on your audience. But either way, it's an awesome talent. So let's try to say our names backwards. Try to say your name backwards. Anna. Boom! 100!
That's not fair. I'll tell you this. Do you want to hear a
I
pretty
couldn't
funny
even
story?
begin to tell you.
Jessica.
Ja. Ja.
So funny story. So whenever I'm that old, whenever personal computers started to become like mainstream for houses to have, we had this computer that you could record something.
Yes, and then play it backwards.
And then play it backwards. And so we would try to say things backwards.
Yes!
And then play it, like reverse it, and then play it and hear what it sounds like.
And see if it sounded
so,
right.
if you want to take a clip of this, I don't know if you can grab it or whatever, but maybe this would be what I post on TikTok. So, if you say, Tuesday Derby Pa, and reverse it, it says, Happy Birthday. And it's something I've remembered my whole life.
You just nailed that non-spiritual gift.
So
just
you know that you can do that on Snapchat.
Yeah, you can reverse.
You can reverse it.
I don't need people sending me random stuff just to me.
Yeah.
That's not. I need group.
It
I
was,
need group social interaction. I
It
can't
was
do
so
Snapchat.
funny though because there's a song that was really popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Missy Elliott.
Yes.
Oh.
And so
Put your dang down, flip it, and reverse it.
that part is actually, so the next part of that, it's your blah 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 blah. That's just what she just said, reverse.
Yeah, I know.
And I did not know that. Thank you, TikTok. And so then I had to try it because that's exactly what it is. Because I tried it on Snapchat and it was like,
see, that's a great non-spiritual gift to speak backwards. And the last one we'd love for everyone to try.
Where's Missy Elliott?
We're going to have to put an E at the end of this episode.
My mom thought that E meant.
Oh, boy.
Oh, gosh.
I cannot wait.
Olivia has been listening to this song and she wanted my mom to download it.
Oh,
and so my mom downloaded it, but my mom kept saying it has bad words in it. Every time I downloaded it, it has bad words in it.
And I said, Mom, what are you downloading? And she said, the one with the E beside it. I said, Mom, E means explicit. And she said, I thought it meant everyone.
Like video games.
Yeah, rated E for everyone.
So she couldn't figure out why it kept cussing and saying bad words.
That's funny.
So she kept deleting it. She's
Yeah.
like, there's not a clean version. And I'm like, I
that's
just
so amazing.
literally just found the clean version. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's so good. So this last non-spiritual gift, this is one that I think everyone can try. You're going to be super cool whenever you try it. I don't know if you'll land high on the scale or low on the scale, but it's slow motion walking. You know, it's just like you can be part of your own slow motion scene at any point in time. You're just going through your life, and all of a sudden, you're like the $1 Million Man.
Do you
right?
have
Dude,
to
if that
do the
noise
effects?
If you
Yes.
slow down your walking and that noise comes out, you need to go to the chiropractor. You've probably got.
Yes. So let's see your best slow motion movements.
This is not a spiritual gift that I know.
This isn't a spiritual
This
gift
is
at
a
all. Remember, these are
non-spiritual gift
non-spiritual
anyway.
This
gifts.
is a non-spiritual gift that I know that I score extremely low in.
Can you do this? Because that's a trend right now on social media. Like reels, people do like a slow motion. They're like moving quick, and then the song will like drop the beat or whatever, and then they move real slow. And then the goal is to make it look like you slowed the movie down or the video, but you actually you actually did. She's talking like Dory talking to whales over here. Wait, what are you doing?
She said walk slow, not talk slow.
But I feel like if you're walking slow, everything goes slow.
That's the non-spiritual gift. You have to
that's
walk
definitely the
slow, but
non-spiritual
still
version.
talk normal.
That's it. Anyway, well, thank you.
Not act slow.
Thank you all so much for tuning in with Nanna's Casserole. I appreciate it. And let us know how those non-spiritual gifts go for you.
Oh, goodness.
We need to come up with an assessment for that.
Oh, I already have it started in a PDF.
Oh, good.
She would.
That's fantastic.
That's administrative is low on me unless it's something that doesn't matter at all.
It's off.
And then it's like, no, literally like one
like
of my
I
best
said yesterday, squirrel.
One of my best friends ever. Used to be these Hello Kitten or Dear Kitten videos on YouTube. It was like for Friskies, but they did all these videos. It was Dear Kitten, and it was like this English accent. It was incredible. But me and my friend loved it so much. She literally created an entire unit plan for her elementary school classroom based around these YouTube videos, and like she had real content for them, and she submitted it, and her principal was like, why don't you do work like this? Or maybe a friend, someone was like, why don't you put this much work into your actual assignments that the county or the state gives you? She's like, because this is way better. Like, this is Dear Kitten, hello.
Yeah.
It just, I'm like, I'm the same way. Like,
That
if it's
is so
nonsense, like I will put everything I have in it. But if it's just like, hey, you need to do this because it's just what's required, I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah. Well,
help
it's
me,
time
Lord.
for our mystery meat segment. And what this is it's a complete random question that has been either submitted by you or by some of us on staff, and it's only known to the individual that has.
That
put
jar
it
is
in
getting
there.
low.
It is getting low.
We need more.
Yeah, we need to fill this thing up, and I feel like we've been asking people this for a year, so I'm gonna quit asking because y'all don't do it.
No, keep asking. We got one
Yeah, we got one.
in 1 year. That's it.
Yeah, we got one in 1 year.
No,
so
maybe we'll get two this year.
90% of these
2 in
questions
2
have
years
been
and
like,
yes.
yeah.
Do it
In
right
90
now.
years.
If you're watching this, do it right now. Put it in the comments.
Whenever we're all talking.
And if you're listening, just text one of us.
Welcome to the mystery meet.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry. I know that if you're still listening, you're just a trooper, to be honest. But listen, if you really want to be entertained, and practice that gift of slow walking, maybe slow talking, just turn your podcast to half speed, and it guarantees a good laugh. Guarantees. Just, that's a tidbit. You can take it or leave it. Moving on.
Especially
or you can make it fast talking, and it'll be like this.
I love listening to Scott on half speed because he has a little bit of a twang, but you can't tell that often. But when he's on half speed, it's just, oh my gosh.
Now I want to do
it. It wrecks my world. And Cheryl, both of them on half speed.
Yeah.
If I need a good laugh, I just
I didn't know I could
anything
change
on
the
half
speeds
speed.
until yesterday.
I know.
When you taught
it
me.
changed your world, though.
Dude, I probably sound like I'm dying like on half speed whenever I get on my loud laughs. So, all right, mystery meat question. Would you rather be able to create a new holiday or create a new language?
Holiday. I don't care about the language.
Yeah.
Holiday, because I love to celebrate holidays.
Yeah, having to come up with like its own alphabet and then
that sounds too difficult.
The phonetics behind each, signal that you create for your alphabet, and then having to put words together and all that, and don't want to do that. Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing? Half speed.
I'm so sorry. I would want to invent a new language, and it would be called half speed.
She would.
You have a headphone in right now? Oh, okay, so you're listening to this. Yeah, I think I would do a holiday, but I would want it to be a federal holiday. And I don't know what the
everybody gets the day off.
Where everybody gets the day off, but you have to do what's on the holiday.
I like that.
Yep.
I'm here for it.
But it would have to be something pretty absurd.
Yeah, like
slow motion walking.
Slow motion.
The whole day.
Yeah.
You have a whole day off, but you are not allowed to walk.
There's talk like a pirate day for real.
Yeah,
I know.
No.
And it could just be your whole federal holiday.
Yeah.
Everybody's off on that.
Somebody tried that with me one time, and I told him, I'm going to make you walk the plank. I was so frustrated. I was like, I'm an adult right now. You don't need to be doing this.
Oh, I love accent days. It's my favorite. We've been watching that Junior British Bake Off, and they talk all lovely. And last night I was watching it, and then I couldn't stop talking like them.
Oh, yeah. You were like in a 3-day stuck.
A couple weeks ago, yeah. And then I started watching it again last night.
Yep. That's it.
That's all we got.
So at the end of last episode, I said, hey, y'all need to join us for, we're going to have Reagan Good, our special needs coordinator, and Pastor Jess and Pastor Cheryl on. It was supposed to be for this week, but I forgot that we needed to end our spiritual gifts. So she will be on next week.
Yep, there we go.
As we highlight just an important ministry here at Southridge Church. And how do we navigate some conversations regarding special needs? I think that it's an important conversation to have. So thank you so much. I laughed really. I feel it. I laughed good.
Yeah,
it was a good laugh.
That's great.
Thank you all for sticking with us all the way to the end. If you have.
They may have tuned out.
Yeah, let us know who you are. We'll send you a gift.
Yeah.
We'll send you some casserole.
And cue the music.
Oh.
Thank you so much for listening in with us today. We really appreciate it. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. You can also follow us on social media, on Facebook, Instagram. You can also watch the video version of this on YouTube as well. All you have to do is search up the Pastor's Potluck Podcast. From all of us here, we want to say thank you, and we'll see you next week.